الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Continuing our reading of the book حلية طالب العلم, the etiquette of the seeker of knowledge, we stopped here on point number 36 where the Shaykh discusses relaxing the body. So he spoke about earlier about the importance of seeking knowledge and making effort. And part of that also is taking breaks, because everyone who studies and learns or engages in any type of activity, you need to have breaks. If you don't have breaks, then your body is going to become taxed and overburdened. The same with your mind and your heart. So Shaykh says, take a few hours from your time to relax yourself in the gardens of knowledge, from the books of lectures, general knowledge. For the heart needs to be relaxed from time to time. And so what he's intending here is that when you have your daily durus or your daily lessons where you're studying a particular subject, then when you finish all of those, you have time in the day where you relax. And the relaxation he's intending here can include just reading and listening to general topics of knowledge. There's a difference between reading and listening and studying. So somebody maybe have books where he studies and other books where he reads. Some tapes where he follows with the Shaykh, and others where he just listens to a benefit. So sometimes you have to have a break. So you want to make it beneficial. So it doesn't mean that you have to always study something. You might listen to an audio, a clip, a benefit about something related to your life, or related to fawaid al-ilm, or something that's going to encourage you. So this is important for the student to have those breaks. Versus when you're time for studies, the dars, you have notes, you're taking notes in the lesson, you're memorizing. So very important to have breaks. And then he says, Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah commented upon the wisdom concerning the prohibition of praying general subrogatory or voluntary prayers during the abhorred times. He said, rather in the prohibition of praying general voluntary prayers during the times where it's prohibited or disliked, or additional advantages such as relaxation of the body at intervals from the weightiness of worship, as one will relax by sleeping, and other forms of relaxation. For this reason, Mu'adh bin Jabal radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said, verily I seek reward for my sleep as I do when I am awake. And that's an authentic narration from Mu'adh bin Jabal radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So we take a benefit that even in Islam there are times where you have a break. And so it's important for the student now to be balanced, that they don't study or attach themselves to study the whole day and without a break. And sometimes the break can be just you sleep, take a nap, you eat something, you change your mind while doing something else, but you must keep it beneficial. The key is that the break should be beneficial and not wasteful. For Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentioned, إِحْرِصْ عَلَى مَا يَنْفَعُكَ. Be eager in that which benefits you. So some scholars, they mentioned, when they were asked about what time should a student spend listening to or reading benefits, for example, or doing research, or just checking what's going on in the Muslim Ummah, or checking what's going on with the different mashayikh, maybe at the end of his day. After he finishes his lessons, he finished everything, he may spend time in the computer writing or looking around the internet at what's happening, or the various groups some people have on their phone. But that isn't the core of your knowledge. That isn't the core of your learning. For some people, they substitute the whole learning to be that, and that's not the case. And the benefit we take as well is that the human being is the nature of the human being is that they need breaks in order to function. And there's no harm in that. For all we know, all of us we know, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he taught us to be balanced. He taught us to be balanced, to have moderation. And this is best exemplified in the hadith of Hanzala radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, where he mentions that we used to sit with the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he will remind us about Jannah and Jahannam, paradise and hellfire, كَأَنَّ رَأْيِ الْعَيْنِ, as if we're seeing with our own eyes. Then he says, فَقُمْتُ, I will get up, and I will go to my ahl, my wife, وَأَوْلَادِي, and my children, فَضَحِكْتُ وَلَعِبْتُ, and I will laugh with them and play with them. And then I realized that I'm in a different state than I was in front of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When I was with him, we're remembering Jannah and Jahannam, and at home I'm playing and I'm laughing. So when he realized this, he thought that he was falling into hypocrisy. He said, I fell into hypocrisy. So I met Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and he said the same concern that he has as well. So we went to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam complaining to him about this, and he said to us, means this is a point of benefit, that there is no harm in having a change, a break. Sometimes you're studying and you're serious, another time you're relaxing. He said, لو كنتم تكونون عندي He said, if you were always how you were when you were sitting with me, لَصَافَحَتْكُمُ الْمَلَائِكَ عَلَى فُرُشِكُم. The malaika will shake your hands while you're on your beds, or عَلَى طُرُقِكُم, or on your streets. But then he said, لَكِنْ يَا حَنْظَلَ سَاعَةً وَسَاعَةً. However, Hanzala, time for this and time for that. Means there's time for relaxation, time for studying, time for sleeping, time for praying. So the balance we take here, the Shaykh is advising us in line with this hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the Shaykh says you might also find that the purpose behind the weekends, where there's weekend breaks, which used to be on the Fridays and Thursday evenings, and sometimes on Mondays and Tuesdays, or Eid al-Adha or Eid al-Fitr, and will last up to 3 days and so on. We find in the books of the etiquette of teaching and biographies many examples. It means in the Islamic world, the weekend occurs on Thursday evening and Friday evening. And in this country, it's the Saturday and Sunday. It's beyond our control. So the weekend is a time for break. And so someone, he relaxes himself and he continues after the break. And the same you find, he says, on Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. And the benefit we take that these are part of the study. The student needs time that he's off. And he mentions many lists of resources where you can read how the ulama, they used to have breaks during their studies. Point 37, precision and correction in reading. He said, covet precision and correction or corrective reading to a proficient Shaykh, so you may be safe from the possible corruption and distortion, mistakes and self-delusion. If you look up all the biographies of all the scholars, especially the Hufaz, those who memorize a very large portion of the Sunnah, amongst them you will find a large number of them who have recited the entirety of the long compilations in a few gatherings of days, reading with precision to a proficient Shaykh. Means the habit of the ulama was to sit and to read over books, and they will recite the book to their Shaykh, the entire book from beginning to end. Some of them will do it through memory, others just by reading. And the benefit was to make sure that they read the book with precision and there's no mistakes in the recitation of the book, and then therefore the understanding. For you find sometimes people, they read the book and they misread it. So that was one of the benefits. Others, they would do it from memory in order to obtain the ijazah, the permit license to teach this book further. And so some of this practice continues till today with the ulama, that you see them in the Haram, Mecca or Medina or other places where you see a student who himself is very high in knowledge reading the entire book to the Shaykh. And they read, for example, Bukhari and Muslim, sometimes books bigger than that, from beginning to end. And this is a habit of the ulama, and there's much benefit in it. Amongst the benefits we find for memory and proper reading, but also patience with ilm. And so completing the book is also a type of khair, is barakah in that, completing these books. So examples, he mentioned Hafid ibn Hajar, rahimahullah, who read Sahih al-Bukhari in 10 gatherings. Every gathering lasted 10 hours. SubhanAllah. At this level, these are our imma used to be. And anyone who knows anything about Hafid ibn Hajar, you know his level of knowledge. He was one who, he memorized the Quran at a very young age, and then read the Quran in the Haram Mecca. That was part of his tarbiyah. When he finished, they report that he read it in the Taraweeh inside the Haram. And some ulama was to that extent that when he finished the Quran, they would not pass it until they had to read in Taraweeh. So you can imagine with other qira'at that he knew and the level of knowledge that he had. This is a scholar truly who can be called Hafiz. And other scholars, he says, for example, Sahih al-Muslim, he read it in 4 gatherings, Hafid ibn Hajar in 2 days, and completed at noon of the next day, which is Arafah on the Friday of the year 1813 Hijri. And he read Sunnah Ibn Majah in 4 gatherings, and Mu'jam Tabarani Saghir in 1 sitting between Dhuhr and Asr. And so you look at this, Shaykh says that, and he mentions other examples, and even till today we have some of our kibar ulama, they do this. If you read their biographies, you see some of the mashayikh, they tell you when they began a book and when they ended it, memorizing it, reading it. So this is not something that is only in the past. Till today we have this great achievements of the ulama. So when we look at this, it gives us inspiration not only to aspire to be like them, but also to know the level of ilm. For an alim is not like one who is not knowledgeable. Because when we look at this level of knowledge, for some of us it may even be hard to believe they exist. People who are able to do that, but they are many by Allah's permission. And the Shaykh then says, point 38, summarizing long compilations to reading. So summarizing long compilations is amongst the most important matters. And by doing it, you will multiply your knowledge, broaden your understanding, and derive the unique benefits from its hiding places. And gain experience in knowing where different issues and topics can be found. And understand different styles of authors in their compilations and their terminologies. So some of the ulama, what they do, they read a big book and they write notes. And sometimes do a talkhis, a summary or mukhtasar of that book. And by summarizing it, they were able to summarize the benefits. But at the same time, find out where everything is For instance, what benefit is in this place and what the book is generally about. And these type of selections help later on when it comes to research or passing fatwa, for they know now where different books and benefits can be found. So as students, it's a good idea as well to help you in your reading. You have a notebook where you write in that which you're reading, what benefits you're taking, for it helps you to take the reading beyond just reading. It means you're actually benefiting by taking down the benefits and you remember them. And also with the page numbers and what print you're using. And so later when you want to benefit from that book, you flip through your notes. It also helps you to quickly realize how to research and to learn the study of researching. And so this is quite a big benefit for those who do it. And of course, this will help us as well later on when we need to do some research on a matter or to pass an opinion or to learn what the ruling is of something. You know the different books. So a student of knowledge, he needs to know where, in this particular issue, which books are references, which one should I refer to, which one I shouldn't, and etc. And this is what you find today, some ulama, their books have been published like this. We gave the example, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, he has mukhtarat, selections from the book Zaid Ma'ad, or selections from I'lam Muwaqqi'een, and others. And other ulama, like even the Shaykh Bakr himself, rahimahullah, he has his own notebooks, later on became books. Means the research he was doing on something that became a book or a source for a book. Number 39, he says excellence in asking questions. We spoke about questions before, but he says that they adhere to etiquette of collective study, such as the excellence in asking questions, listening, correcting the understandings of the answers. Beware when you receive an answer to say, but Shaykh so-and-so said such and such to me. For this is deficiency in your manners, and it creates a conflict between the sayings of scholars. I mean, there's adab when someone's asking a question, and when they're having a mudhakara, a discussion, that someone be wary not to be disrespectful. For sometimes someone may ask a question and say, but Shaykh so-and-so said the opposite of what you said. And that is not good adab to mention another Shaykh's opinion and the Shaykh give his opinion. For the Shaykh is well aware of the other opinions, but this is his own opinion. And so sometimes you find that the back and forth happens, someone says something, but Shaykh, someone-so, for example, Shaykh Ibn Baz or Uthaymin said, and they're older, or maybe they're teachers. This is disrespect. It's not how someone should interact with the Shaykh. It means that his opinion, you take it as an opinion. And perhaps the Shaykh has different opinions, so you note it down. So it's important when you're interacting with the people of knowledge that you don't interrupt them or don't try to create this discord between them. Or for example, the Shaykh says, you say, what is your opinion of such and such fatwa? And you ask him, you fatwa of another Shaykh, what do you think about this? And so this type of thing, he said that if you're trying to clarify the question without naming the person, in reality this is not befitting as well. But if you're going to just ask about the issue, it's better not to mention the name. It means you want to talk about, maybe there's an issue with the scholars, they differed, then you will mention, okay, this particular issue or opinion or this fatwa, what do you think about it? Without saying Shaykh so-and-so said it. Because then the Shaykh may end up criticizing the other Shaykh and creating fitna and discord. Imam Ibn Qayyim, he says, rahimahullah, if you sit with a scholar and ask to gain religious understanding and not to go to extremes. When you ask to gain religious knowledge and not to go to extremes. Sometimes the person who asks a question, they're not looking for guidance. And so when you ask, you're asking to learn. This is important. When you ask, you're asking to learn. Because you may ask in order to belittle or to show that you know. For example, you know something that if no one knows, you ask a question and then just to show that I know this issue. That's not the intent. You want to learn. Or to benefit people by something. Then he says that there are 6 levels of knowledge. The first is excellence in asking questions. The second is excellence in paying attention and listening. The third is to have a proper intention. ثم استماع, then listening. ثم فهم, then understanding. ثم حفظ, then memorization. ثم عمل, then action. ثم نشر, then spreading it. And so what this teaches us that there are levels of knowledge, and it begins with the intention and it ends with sharing knowledge and spreading it. So a person shouldn't be hasty. You should spread knowledge which they didn't act upon, they didn't memorize, they didn't practice, they didn't understand sometimes. So the benefit we take that, knowledge and asking questions is also part of knowledge. Which is connected to the next point, which is debating without argumentation. And this is a form of learning. When you have a debate amongst students or a Shaykh with the student to find out the truth and to distinguish falsehood from truth. And this type of debate is not to create argumentation, but it's for review. For example, you might have a munaqasha, debate about a fiqh issue, and both opinions. That one opinion says this and other says that, and you go back and forth to share the knowledge, expand the knowledge. It means each one will bring the evidences and opinions, and you will get strengthened in how to understand the mas'ala. But also it's not quarreling and debating in order to belittle. And this is fine. This is a type of mudhakara. It's something really good. You sit down after the lesson and you have munaqasha mudhakara, this opinion, that benefit, and this issue. It helps to strengthen your knowledge. Also, from the benefits of doing mudhakara is ihya al-ilm. It helps you revive knowledge. It also helps you to realize your own level of knowledge. Because sometimes you may think that you understand the mas'ala, that you have munaqasha, you realize you don't have anything. You're not standing on much. Because the next person, as he's sharing the benefits, brings a lot more than what you had, or stronger evidences that you didn't know, and then you end up changing your view. So there's benefit in this, and it's different. Mudhakara with adab, between a tulab or between a shaykh and a student, something beneficial. And so some of the salaf, they would mention that they would sit with some of their mashayikh or their contemporaries, thinking that they knew an issue, and they find out that they really didn't know it, because the other person will bring a lot of benefit. And so this is something which is important, we should pay attention to, having time for that, discussions, and that's how you review ilm, mudhakara to ilm, because one of the dangers is that you're going to forget masail. So every one of us will forget. So one way to always remember something to share. If you have free time, you're walking, you're sitting with them, mudhakara, bring a mas'ala, you have munaqasha back and forth, because sometimes you forget these benefits. And so by having these discussions, ilm will be revived. And then he mentioned the 41th point, which is a revision of knowledge in groups. So you could do this in a group together, everyone sharing in what they know of the mas'ala and what they have studied and read about it. And number 42, the seeker of knowledge lives between the text of the Quran and Sunnah and knowledge associated to them. For they are for him are two wings, as two wings are to a bird. So be careful that you don't become broken-winged. Means the student of knowledge should always be between the Quran and Sunnah and the ilm that leads to understanding them. You should never be without that. Means you can't say you're seeking knowledge, you don't have with you kitab, wala sunnah, not the ulum, not the aqwal ulama and salaf. You really don't have knowledge then. So the benefit we take when we seek knowledge, for something to qualify as knowledge, we have a dalil, we have faham salaf, or at the very least, someone was preceded us who had that opinion. We have masadir, we have sources, where did they come from? So these are the foundation. Then you know you have something of knowledge. Whatever issue you're learning. Because sometimes you seek knowledge, and then when the issue comes, all you have is the khulasa. No benefit to have the conclusion if you don't know where it came from. How was it achieved? What was the proof? Who said it? So sometimes we have the opinion, for example, this is haram. Someone asks, where did it come? You don't know. What's the proof? You don't know. Who said it? You don't know. Then why is someone going to take it from you? So for us, when we're learning, we make sure we know the dillah. But also we know who said it. It's so important when you're writing your notes, which shaykh said this. Because if you have to give the nisbah to the correct shaykh or the imam, and also the source. Because later on, that person who you're sharing it with, not only is it more convincing when you share it this way, and more also genuine that you're showing that this is what you understand, that person perhaps will follow up and read more and become guided. But when you tell them only that it's haram and I heard this in a lesson, it doesn't work. And this is important for the student. Every mas'ala we have to have it with like this. And the last thing he says, completion of learning the tools of every subject. You will never become a true seeker of knowledge, precise and diverse, unless you complete learning the tools of every subject. For example, in fiqh, combine between jurisprudence and its principles. In hadith, between understanding it and knowledge of the principles of narration, and so on. Every ilm you have to know the ulum, the usul, and then also the issues that come from it. So fiqh, we study usul of fiqh and masail of fiqh. So masail of fiqh, how to pray, how to give zakat, that which Brother Majid is teaching us, or taught us before. And then the usul, how do you connect that to the usul? So you can explain the rationale behind that. So jama' bayn al-dalil wa ta'leel. And this was something which many of the ulama, like Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, they advise. The student of knowledge, he knows fiqh, between combining between dalil, evidence, and ta'leel, reasoning. Because sometimes the reasoning helps you to understand how the ruling was achieved. How do you know, for example, this position is correct, so you give some understanding. Why the ulama have chosen this view, or what proofs they bring. Same with hadith. So important that the student of knowledge, he knows ulum al-hadith, mustalah al-hadith. For Ahlul Hadith, they have to know the hadith. So it's very important that we study that along with the hadith, memorizing it, reviewing it, etc. And Allah says in the Quran, الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابَ يَتْلُونَهُ حَقَّ تِلَاوَتِهِ أُولَٰئِكَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ. Allah says, and those whom the book, we gave the book, recited as it should be recited, are those who believe therein. We can understand from these verses, seeker of knowledge should not leave a subject except after perfecting it. Means try your best to have perfection in a subject. Inshallah, we'll mention just a bit more before we finish. Chapter number 6, adorn yourself with the implementation of knowledge. So point 44 is that the signs of beneficial knowledge are the following. Number 1, you implement it. For ilm is there to be acted upon. When we learn, we act. And hatred of being praised and complimented or displaying haughtiness over others. So one way you know you have beneficial knowledge, you act upon your knowledge. Number 1, 2, you stay from being or loving to be praised, to hate to be praised. And this is very important. Some people may come and say, you're Shaykh so-and-so. You say, I'm not a Shaykh. You have to humble yourself and show the displeasure. And this is important because if you like to be praised, it's not a sign of beneficial knowledge. Number 3, increasing your modesty with the increase of your knowledge. It means the more you learn, the more you become humble. And this is the description of Allah gives in Surah Isra of the believers. Those who have much knowledge of Allah, they fall face first, or they fall forward in prostration to Allah. It means with khushu', and they bring prostration to Allah when they hear the ayat of Allah. It means they have humility with them, despite their knowledge. Knowledge leads to humility. If knowledge leads to arrogance, it's not true knowledge. Number 4, fleeing from the love of leadership and fame. And this is a disease. Someone who wishes to become famous and to become the leader of the people. And we know in one hadith, the Messenger ﷺ dispraised the one's intention is to learn to be a leader, so that people can look up to them and to face them in the majalis. This type of person, he said ﷺ, the hellfire is for them. And one of the Salaf, Yahya ibn Mu'adh, rahimahullah, he said, لا يفلح من شممت رائحة الرياسة منه. That he won't be successful, the one who you smell the love of fame from him. He won't be successful, the one who you smell the scent of fame from him. Means that you see him, this person wants leadership, this person wants to be always the imam in front of the people, or the one who the people, the issues are returned to, the marji', always, or in the majalis, he's always leading and talking. And so this is a very dangerous thing. We should avoid it at all costs. I mean, next week we'll talk about how the Salaf dealt with that issue. For they were also tested with fame. And they were also tested with being known. So how did they deal with it? And what were their strategies to avoid people praising them beyond their bounds? Inshallah, end with this much. Anyone has any we have time, I'll tell you, inshallah. I thought it was 8. Inshallah, we'll continue then. So about the fame as well, some of the Salaf, perhaps we'll mention it now then, since we have more time. Some of them, what they would do is that they would avoid the majalis which are big. It means that if they realized that when the majalis will become very big and people were coming because their name was spread, they would try to abandon these things, because they found that when the majalis were big and people were coming to them because they knew about them and their names, that something will fall into their heart. So some of them, they wouldn't only sit amongst 2 or 3, 4 people, and if more came, they would get up and leave. Others would just make dua to Allah to ask them to be sincere and to make them sincere away from the people's fame. So we know examples like Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, who was the Imam of the Ard. His status probably is not paralleled by many, in that he wasn't after the Mihna just a Shaykh, referred to as Shaykh al-Islam, he was the Shaykh of the whole Ard. Until some of the biographers, they mentioned that the Jews and Christians came to visit him, and some of them embraced Islam because of him. Just by his status after the Mihna, it was to that level that they accepted Islam and said, we were waiting years to meet the likes of you. So his status was so much that he would often wish and pray to Allah that he would be in the pathways in Mecca, like in the very valleys, so no one would know him. And we ask Allah that he said, I wish I would be like that. No one knew who I was. But he was tested with fame, he said. And so for us, when we look at the example of Salaf, how they were fleeing leadership, fleeing even power positions like a qadi, a judge, because they knew the position was weighty. Then we will also humble ourselves. Sometimes we look at the positions as a manasib, seats of power, as something which is good for us. But in reality, we don't know, because true knowledge teaches us that we'll be held accountable for that. So some of the Salaf, they knew that if they become a qadi, a judge, it doesn't just mean that they have the knowledge or capacity to pass verdicts and judgment, but that Allah will ask them on Qiyamah. As it comes to some hadith, مَنْ جُعِلَ قَاضِيًا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ, whoever has been made a judge between the people, ذُبِحَ بِغَيْرِ سَكِينٍ, has been slaughtered without a sword or without a blade. It means this position is so weighty, this person is in big trouble. He's going to be asked on Qiyamah, because the Rasul said he said that 2 judges are in the hellfire and 1 is in Jannah. Means that the chances of people being guided in that position are very few. One judge, for example, passes knowledge with ignorance, doesn't know the issues. so that he passes judgment, that one is heading to the hellfire. Another one, for example, he has knowledge, but he has hawa, desire, so he passes the wrong opinions. And the third one, he acts upon the knowledge. So when you look at those narrations, it's no wonder the Salaf are worried about power. But when you're ignorant, you think that you want to be the imam, you want to be the leader, because you don't have knowledge enough to kick you away from those issues, or you think yourself so trusted in yourself, have so much confidence in yourself, that you think you won't become misguided. The Shaykh says, number 5, abandon the claim to have knowledge. So it's important that the student knowledge doesn't ever say that they have knowledge. And this is what you find in Kitab Al-Ilm, Abu Khaythama, that he mentions some of the Salaf, when they sat together in gatherings, or they wouldn't even like to tell people that which they know. For example, someone would come and say, I know this and I know that. They wouldn't say that. And so this is a habit as well, that you don't tell the people everything. Maybe I studied this or I know that, because then you start claiming that I have knowledge. Or that you say that I am a knowledgeable person. And this is not befitting, unless, of course, it's in a position where there is doubt and you have to ascertain that you have something of knowledge. For that reason, it's okay to say sometimes, I know this issue. As we find the example of Yusuf alayhi salam in the Quran, when he asked Aziz to become the leader of or in charge of the storehouses, that he said to him that I am one who is knowledgeable. Hafidun alim, I have knowledge and I'm trustworthy. So it's permissible sometimes, if there's doubt that I know this issue, but to claim that you have knowledge and always brag about it, that is not a sign of knowledge. Number 6, having bad suspicion about oneself and good suspicion about other people. This is a sign of beneficial knowledge. You don't think big of yourself and you don't think bad about others. Rather, you think good of others and bad about your own self. And so this is an important benefit we take in the manner of the student. Students shouldn't think so much of himself. She says that Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, rahimahullah, said, do not compare us to them. Means the Salaf who came before, don't compare us at the present to them, for the sound person who walks is not as the same as the one who's crippled. Means that we can't compare ourselves to those before us. Point number 55, the alms of knowledge, zakatul ilm. Giving alms of knowledge means openly proclaiming the truth, enjoying the good and forbidding evil, weighing up the religious advantages and disadvantages, and spreading the knowledge, the love of benefiting, sacrificing honor, in interceding for good causes for the sake of the Muslims in the affairs of the truth and in general interest. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when a person dies, his deeds are cut off except for 3, a continuous charity or knowledge which is benefited from, or a righteous child who prays for him. Narrated by Muslim. Some of the people of knowledge said, these 3 are not combined except for a scholar who spends his knowledge, because spending is charity which is benefited from, and the receiver of it is like a child of the scholar by way of learning. And so we take a benefit that we have zakatul ilm. And the zakatul ilm is that you share the benefits that you know. There's no benefit in learning so much and then you don't share with others, with your family, with your friends, your neighbors. That which you learn in these lessons, that which you learned in a book or a tape. And it's so important that we share the ilm. Very important that we share it, because sometimes we don't know the extent of the people's knowledge. People might not know much, and amongst them is you, and you know more and you didn't say anything. Perhaps there's a mistake or something they misunderstood and you didn't share anything with them. Zakatul ilm is so important. And the more that you give the knowledge, it doesn't decrease from your knowledge. Unlike wealth, because some of the ulama, they compared knowledge with wealth. And they said that the difference between them is many. Wealth, you have to protect it, whereas knowledge protects you. Wealth, when you give it, you lose it. But knowledge, when you give it, it only increases. It means it increases you and others, bin barak and khair. And there's so many other differences. So it's so important that you benefit the people with your knowledge. And one way to do it is also to teach people that which you learned. Either writing it to them, for example, you write something for people to benefit from. Or you record something beneficial for the people. Or you teach people that which you learned. And so nowadays we have to pay attention to zakatul ilm, because the knowledge as towards the end of time will become more and more scarce. Until will come a time where the knowledge will be removed from the people. As we even see now, the extent of the ignorance of the community, the Muslims in general, is very much, because knowledge is not being spread as it used to be before. And the Shaykh says, therefore covet this etiquette, for it's the main fruit of your knowledge. Due to this nobility of knowledge, you increase it with the increase of spending, and decrease it with the fear of spending. So some of the Salaf, like Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, rahimahullah, he advised the recording of the books of hadith out of fear of the kitman al-ilm. The knowledge is going to become concealed. As you read in Sahih Bukhari, that he commanded Zuhri and others to start the compilation of hadith into books. Because he said, I fear kitman al-ilm, knowledge is going to become lost and concealed. And that how it will be concealed? No more review, no more sessions where people are reviewing, sitting like this and learning. And so for us, what should we do? Whatever you know, teach someone. And sometimes we think to ourselves that we don't know anything. And that's not true. Every one of us, we know something. An example, you know Surah Al-Fatiha. Otherwise you yourself couldn't pray. But all of us we pray, so you know Fatiha. So you go and you teach those people who don't know how to read Fatiha properly. Some of the Shaykh, they mention that. What is stopping us from doing that? Who said you have to be part of an organization or a big board? You know Fatiha, you gather people, you meet talqeen. And there's some Shaykh who are known for that. In history they mention certain biographies, some Shaykh, they used to sit with the awam and just do talqeen Fatiha. That's it. From the whole day, he just sit there, every Ami will come sit, he'll teach the Fatiha and okay, go. The next one, he just make tasmih and he could correct. And we mentioned before the example, one of the Imams, his father used to be called Shaykh al-Wudu. He used to sit in the wudu area and teach all the awam how to make wudu and correct them. And today we need dire need of that. You may laugh, but it's actually a reality that we need to sit in the wudu area, some of us, and advise the people. This is a mistake, make sure you finish, because some people they don't know. And so this is a type of zakatul ilm, because the people when they learn the wudu, and you fill that gap, then the next person will come and fill another gap. For example, you teaching the people the basics of this issue, someone else come and fix that issue. But if each one of us is thinking that I don't know anything, we wait for the so-and-so, he knows. And then reality is that the ilm will pass away and the people will become ignorant. And the Shaykh said, therefore, do not put off the obligation of conveying and passing knowledge by the claim that these are evil times, or that there is a predomination of evil people, and the weak effects of giving sincere advice. But if you do, then it is an action that the sinful people will give gold for, and it is appropriate for them to leave all virtue and publicize corruption. It means we shouldn't blame our time period that we're living in, that it's so bad that there's nothing we can do, there's no hope. We live in such a bad time, what's the benefit? No, we have to always believe that nasiha is there, ad-deen nasiha, give the nasiha to the people, advise them, correct them, share the benefit and think good of the people, and more important, think good of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will aid us and allow that knowledge to be spread. Inshallah, we'll end with this much because the Shaykh moves to the next chapter, and we'll leave that for the next week. If there are any questions or something someone wants to add or mention, or
can you repeat the narration that Yuflah man shamam?
So Yahya ibn Mu'adh rahimahullah, he said, لا يفلح من شممت رائحة الرياسة منه. He will not be successful, the one who you smell from him the love for fame and power and leadership. So we shouldn't be the people who want to always be leaders and to always take over the power. This is mentioned by Imam Dhahabi in Siyara A'lam Nubala, he narrates that from him. So one way to protect yourself from that, to love the leadership, is to know that leadership is accountability Yawm al-Qiyamah. So whoever is made a leader over people, Allah will ask him. Doesn't have to be over a country, or over a state, or over even a big space. There's one hadith narrates, if you're a leader over 10 people, whoever is made a leader over 10 people, who will come with his hand shackled to his neck Yawm al-Qiyamah, and he'll be freed by his actions or failed by them. So you remind yourself that there's a hadith about the dangers of wanting to become a leader and to become asking for it. Because of course someone has to be a leader. Someone has to lead. So the person most qualified, people should appoint. But you coming and wanting to always be in charge in leadership, you remind yourself of those ahadith. You also remind yourself of people before us who were tested with leadership and they were not successful. They were trialed by it. And you see those examples and you become fearful for your own self. And other things, you also have to remember that in general these positions are amana, and you have to remind yourself of Allah always. And there are other things, but these are some examples. Now,
how does a person ensure that they don't fall into that, or that the knowledge that they're actually getting is beneficial, that makes them more humble?
This is a good point. How do we protect ourselves from feeling that feeling of arrogance, that because we know something we're better than others? So we need to be reminded that of everyone who knows something, there's one more knowledgeable. So when you sit with those more knowledgeable than you become humbled very quickly. And that's why when you sit in majalis with the mashayikh and with the teachers, you see that whatever you think you know, you don't know. And also to read the biographies of those before us. Sahaba and Salaf, they were the most knowledgeable people. And when you see how humble they were, you think to yourself that we couldn't reach their feet. But yet they were so humble. So this is one way. But also reminding yourself of your uyub, your mistakes. Because when you favor your knowledge, it doesn't mean that you're acting upon your knowledge or that you're the most qualified. Maybe you have something of knowledge, but also you have mistakes. So someone who's honest with himself, he will look at himself in the totality. Everyone knows himself best. You know what you do right and wrong. So when you think yourself arrogant and those feelings comes that I'm the most knowledgeable person here, or I know the most in this issue, then you realize I do this sin, I do that sin, and then you come down. So these are helpful things. And some ulama, they also mention in general that the person has to strive against himself. Because that is one type of arrogance, or one type of sickness of the heart. To think so much good of yourself and so bad of others. And so there's a lot, but these are some examples. Inshallah, we will end with this much. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.